Hi there, this is Dylan, and I'm having a hideous time trying to make this video. Something really awful just happened, and I feel like I need to document it. So we have some good news to start with. We got out of the insanely hot place we were stranded in. It was about to be 110 degrees, and with our heat sensitivity, we actually could have died if we had stayed. So we managed to get out with the last bit of money that came our way from having stayed in hotels and getting deposits back. We managed to get north to a new town. We are now in Oregon, and it's cooler where we are in terms of climate, but there are some hideous people here. And we just went into a coffee shop to try to charge our phone, which is very difficult for us when we have the homeless pack on, because usually people are cruel and push us out, and if they don't say anything to us directly, they beam hatred at us, absolutely emanate like rage beyond all comprehension at us for sitting there with our pack, even though well, I'm not going to even justify it. There's no reason to treat anyone like that for any reason. I'm not going to justify why I don't deserve that. I don't have to do that. There's nothing about me other than me being a human being that really says I don't deserve that, if that makes any sense. I always feel like I'm trying to make excuses, be like, oh, well, I was really clean. Oh, well, I was really polite. No, it doesn't matter. Like, there's no excuse to treat anyone like that, no matter what. But me walking in just with the pack, otherwise looking, you know, like a punk, but pretty cleaned up, you know, I was still treated, you know, I'm still treated horribly all the time. And I went into this place to try to charge my phone, and at first it seemed okay. Like, I didn't feel too much bad energy from this female barista, this young woman who was working there. She didn't seem particularly great, but she didn't seem terrible either. And so I'm sitting there sewing, and my partner is sitting there recharging our electronics, and we're not bothering anyone. We're barely making any noise. For a bit, I talked to him about spirituality, and I said some beautiful things about freedom and peace and healing, which I'm pretty sure the owner of the coffee shop heard, because he came in at some point, and he was beaming hatred at me, at both of us, and I could feel it. Being a hyper-empathetic autistic person and a very traumatized person, I'm very aware when people are beaming that kind of rage. So he didn't say anything, but I could tell from the way he came, you know, his energy, that he was being hateful. And I did my best to stay calm and to hold space for myself and for him, even though he did not deserve it at all. And I just did that out of necessity, because I've learned to try to do that as much as I shouldn't have to. It's the only way to get my basic needs met when on the street, is to continuously make space for people's violence, spoken and unspoken. Because as the story will evidence, I'm almost never listened to by people like that when anything does blow up. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden there's nobody around, and then 3 people walk in. 2 older men and an older lady. And she was going off about something, and my immediate impression was that she was a narcissist. Having a narcissistic mother and having grown up in a cult, I am very attuned specifically to older narcissistic women. And this woman emanated that, and I figured that she and the other people there were probably MK, and some shit was probably going to go down to try to fuck with me, but I did my best to just stay chill and to make more space for more people that did not deserve it. Sorry for the background noise. I'm in a park, one of the only places where I can go, and unfortunately there are lots of people who are pushed here at once, and so it's not always very quiet. So what I was trying to say was these people walk in, and I could tell that they were very, very, very not good people, to say the least. None of them, but especially the woman, the way she was talking. And I'm not even trying to say she was actually worse than the other 2. She was just the one who was most prominent, which is an ironic thing to say given what happened next. So I'm sitting there, and nobody is saying anything that like, I couldn't even understand what they were really talking about, and I wasn't trying to, but being autistic and being traumatized and hypervigilant, I have a really hard time blocking out what people say. Part of my autism is that I don't differentiate sounds well, and when people are threatening me, I am hyper-focused on what they're saying. And those people felt threatening, so I was hyper-focused. I didn't know what they were talking about at first, so I was trying to block it out. But then, all of a sudden, I hear someone, this is after the woman walked by me and walked by my stuff, and if she had been paying attention, she might have noticed, and I think she probably was MK anyway, but if she had been paying attention, she might have noticed that on the sleeve of my jacket is the word love with a trans pride symbol on the O. And I don't know if she noticed this, but it might explain some of what happened, even though I think she probably was MK anyway. So, as she's walking back, I'm not even sure she'd fully sat down before I hear the word transgenders being spit, basically, by her. And it was in the context of talking about something. They were talking about legal stuff. They were talking about the legality of referring to trans people by their correct genders, and I couldn't fully process everything they were saying because it was very triggering. But they were obviously being hateful. Their tone was very hateful. They were spitting the word transgender. They kept saying non-binary in this really hateful voice. And they kept repeating the word non-binary over and over again, and making, obviously without overtly doing it, they were mocking non-binary people for using they pronouns. And I think what they were talking about was how victimized they felt as cis people for being legally obligated to ever show trans people any respect. That in legal matters, when talking about like trans people who are being prosecuted for something, I think they might have been lawyers or something, and they were talking about how it seemed like they were talking about how they felt victimized, that they were legally expected to refer to trans people who are being prosecuted by the correct gender pronouns, and how they thought that was really oppressive towards them. I don't know for sure if that's really what they were saying, because they were being so triggering and I wasn't able to process everything that they were saying. But that was the impression that I got. And it was really upsetting, and I had a really hard time coping with it. And I've barely slept, being homeless, like being outside in recent times. I was already not getting much sleep in the motels, but now I'm really not getting much sleep. And I didn't want anything to do with these people, so I was trying to ignore them as best I could. But then one of them, and I swear he was kind of looking in my direction when he said it, but it's all blurry at this point. But then one of them says, you know what I think we should be able to call them? If there's they and it, then we should be able to call them shit. I think we should call them shit. And he started saying over and over and over again. He started repeating the word shit over and over, spitting it, saying that trans people should be exclusively referred to by the pronouns of shit. And I got really upset. Amazing. A trans person getting upset about being told over and over and over again that they're shit. Imagine a human being getting upset about that. I know it's very weird to imagine a person might not respond great to that. But me, being me, and being dedicated to actually responding effectively in these situations, didn't go up to him and rip his face off like he probably deserved. But instead, I said in as polite but as assertive a tone of voice as possible, without yelling, without cursing like him, I just said, I can't remember what my exact words were, but it was something along the lines of, hey, people are trying to chill here, and not everybody wants to hear things like this. Could you please stop saying things like that? And I didn't say it any more intensely than that. I really didn't. That was really basically all that I said. I don't remember my exact words, but that's really all that I said. And then the coffee shop owner, who had been beaming hatred at us the whole time, turns to me and tells me from at this coffee bar thing that he's standing behind like it's some kind of fortress. I could tell he was very much armoring himself behind it against the evil queers and the evil homeless people. And he fucking tells me that I need to stop. There's no need. He doesn't want conflict here. There's no conflict allowed in his coffee shop. And I, in a still very calm voice, but slightly raised, not yelling, not even really that raised, really just my normal speaking volume as an autistic person. It always sounds kind of forced, and I'm always kind of loud, for at least the altar I am. I have other altars that are in a permanent state of shutdown, so they're kind of quiet, but I'm always loud. That's how my autism expresses itself. And, you know, so just ever so slightly loud, but still pretty normal. I told him that, sorry, something triggered me. Somebody came up and it triggered me. What was I trying to say? I'm so upset. I told him that as politely as possible, with barely raising my voice at all, as politely as possible, I told him that what that person, you know, I told him that I am transgender and that person was saying horrible things about trans people, and I just want to sit here in peace and do my sewing, and could they stop? And he told me that he didn't hear what that guy had said, so it was not okay that I had told him to stop. That doesn't make any sense. I know that doesn't make any sense at all. But that's what he told me. He told me that because he didn't hear what they said, I didn't have a right to assert myself. He didn't hear it, and he told me that I should not have been listening to them. That because I was able to hear them loudly spewing hate speech, which he was apparently capable of blocking out, because I guess he doesn't have a trauma history around transphobia. Surprise, cis people not having enough of a trauma history around transphobia to register it when it's happening near them. But I have a trauma history around that, and me being autistic, I can't just block everything out. I could not block out what they were saying. And I told him that. I decided to go ahead and say it. I said, you know, I'm also autistic, and I can't block out what people are saying. Believe me, I did not want to hear what they were saying, but I still could not help but hear, and I just needed them to stop. And he continued to tell me over and over again that I was the one who had the problem because I had said something, and if I had just not said anything to their abuse, everything would be fine. And so I was the problem. And then the guy who said those things to me, he came up to me and he got in my face and he started waving his finger in my face, and I don't know what he said because I dissociated. But I know he started by saying, well, you know, you do kind of have a point. And then he got in my face and he started waving his finger. Like, I don't know how close he was because I dissociated, but he was waving his finger and he was too fucking close to me. And I put my hand up and I said, stop. And it's my partner who was trying to say, stop, you know, tell his people to back off. And at this point, the guy from the coffee shop who runs the coffee shop starts telling us that we have to leave. We have to leave because now we're putting our hands up while someone is getting in our face and waving their fingers in our face and saying hateful things to us. And we have to leave because we are creating a problem by not being okay with that. By politely putting our hands up and saying, stop. He told us that we were creating a problem. Never once was it suggested that a person's hate speech was creating a problem because the guy who runs the coffee shop didn't hear what he said. So there was no problem. That person who was very white, I'm sure very straight and very cisgendered, owning this very nice coffee shop, I'm sure he can go through his whole life never hearing anything and he can get his needs met. He can be taken care of without ever processing anything that happens ever, basically. But not everybody has that privilege. So I know for him there was no problem. The entire world being on fire, people being in horrific pain is no